Now we are business apes. Urgh. I'm the unshaven Saturday business ape.
Saturday ape is relaxed ape. You're really into the primate thing lately. I like it.
We are back for another lean and mean episode of the Cold Star Project. Today we have as our guest my ex-co-founder. Yes, we get along really great. Jeremy Pope from The Closing Engine. Jeremy, tell our fine listeners and viewers what The Closing Engine is. What was your vision when you started this thing?
Ooh, The Closing Engine is, thank you for having me, by the way. I'm excited to do this. I always love hearing what questions you come up with for interviews. You're amazing at that. The Closing Engine is a third-party sales as a service company. We provide sales departments to other companies with high-ticket services or products. And the vision for that is to become the premier closing as a service company in the world. There aren't a whole lot of people doing this right now, and I'm really excited. And I think it's very possible to do this.
Awesome. I know because I worked with you for a year and a half, what the tech stack is and the people behind the Closing Engine is. How many people have we got working there now?
Right now, we are not the biggest in the world. There are 8 of us right now. So it's awesome. Very small at the moment.
But we've, seen a lot of growth.
Yeah. From just you and me.
Right. And so let's get into so you had a vision, and then you came and you approached me. Somehow you picked me out of the the people in the sea of marketing that you saw before you.
You know, it wasn't exactly the marketing stuff. Your marketing stuff is awesome, but it was more your understanding of processes and the back end of the business combined with the marketing. That was really what tipped me off. Oh, I should pay attention to this guy.
And then we talked for a long time. And I think that people who are considering finding a co-founder need to do this. You need more parlay with people, I guess. Talk to us a little bit about that.
We hear a lot of stories from people who have bad partnership experiences. And you and I had a pretty good one overall. Everybody's got their little squabbles, and I mean, it's a business marriage after all, I guess you could say. But we hear a lot of stories about people who jump in to a business partnership because you have similarities of ideas. But they don't necessarily have, a similarity of the business ethics even. I mean, it's really basic levels of stuff. And knowing that we could trust each other 100% on the 3 different levels of trust that I talk about, the intentions. I mean, don't even be around someone where you don't trust their intentions toward you.
Right.
Their skills and abilities, and then their judgment and discretion. Being able to trust each other on those 3 levels, that makes a huge difference. And it means that you can go away and know that things aren't going to fall apart without you. Those are the 3 things that I would really say about finding a co-founder. And I mean, we can't say that we got it right. We had a lot of fun together, and we did some cool stuff together, but we certainly didn't build a $100 million a year business together, but we had a good run, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I see a lot of posts in groups and forums and that of where can I find a founder?
Oh, God.
And it kind of looks like they're sidling up to somebody at the singles bar and are ready to take the first person they encounter home.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah. Very dangerous. That's the cautionary tale. So you and I had several conversations before deciding to work together about everything under the sun. Our spiritual points of view are pretty well aligned. Even things on that level. And we both know now that we can trust the other not to run away with the money to tropical island, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That was vital. I mean, that's the basic level of, do I trust this person? Do I trust their history? Do I trust their story? Do I trust their experience so that they're not going to run away here? And that was a hugely relaxing thing to have. But I wanted to say, these people who are looking for a co-founder, stop. Don't look for a co-founder. Look to solve a particular problem. Look to solve a particular series of problems. And you might not need a co-founder. A co-founder is the most expensive thing that you will ever buy in business, at least. And
Okay,
so,
yeah.
I mean, it's a wonderful thing, but there's, you need to go into this like this is the biggest purchase your business will ever make. Your co-founders or investors, somebody with control over your business with you, that's a big deal. And you need to approach it soberly and with deliberation, not with, I need somebody to take responsibility away from me. That was probably the biggest mistake that I made in my thinking about I need a co-founder. It was, I need somebody to pass the buck to. That's not the way it works. It's like it doubles the responsibility. You had your things you were totally responsible for, and I had things I was totally responsible for. And it didn't remove that sense of responsibility. It kind of doubled it. So that was a surprise to me, and very part of my maturing process in business, I guess you could say.
Yeah, as we grew, I mean, I think back to, do you remember PDIs?
Yeah, that was a worthy effort, wasn't it? Yeah.
We decided that we were going to have performance development or personal development interviews.
Yeah.
Based on a little booklet that I had bought from somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And we ran these literally every week, and they would end up being these 20-minute conversations with everybody who was working with us, and I was doing them, and it filled up at least half my time. And what we found was most people kind of liked it, but some were infuriated by it. It just needed this prying into their world when they had other stuff that they would rather be doing.
Yeah. That was a big eye-opener for us in teaching us about our own company culture. And a couple of those people that were not into it, we set that up in a weird way. We had those kind of tied to the compensation structure, like what was going, like the personal development type stuff was tied to the compensation structure, and it was a bit much. We probably overstepped by 20%, 25% on that stuff. So we realized that very quickly as we went into it. But we also realized that there were some people that we had on board that were not a culture fit for what we wanted. We now vet really hard for people who want to be a lone wolf. We weed those people out immediately. We want people who want to be part of a team and who love what we're doing as a team. And that has made a tremendous difference. We now have way lower turnover. I mean, we're designed to have low turnover in our compensation plans and everything, but culture fit made a big difference in low turnover as well.
Right. I hadn't even thought about culture before this interview, but let's dig into it, because our culture is written down and has been for a long time.
Yeah. We've had it on the website since a couple of weeks after we wrote it. Yeah.
And that was not immediately as the business started, but after, I don't know, 4 months or something, I think we had it.
I don't remember exactly. I don't even remember what prompted it exactly, but I remember I read some things that said we should have it, and I realized, this would be a very useful tool, and it has been. We have, if you want to see our company culture doc, you can go to theclosingengine.com, and it might be /company-culture or something like that. It's linked from the main menu, but it's about we give, how we grow together. We praise people, we criticize in private. I mean, it's kind of the overarching constitution, I guess, or the Bill of Rights for employees. And I'm
laughing because I remember you being your feet held to the fire a couple times.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I told people, and I still tell people when I'm doing recruiting interviews, that look, you are allowed to hold my feet to the fire, just like Jason said. If I am not matching up to this document, if I am creating a culture that doesn't match that, well, I've thought about that a lot more than I'm thinking in the moment. So I'm right when I wrote that document. I'm not right now if I have a mismatch. So I want to live up to that document just the same way I want everyone else in the company to live up to that document there. And it's very polarizing. We find that a fair number of salespeople who get in touch with me to say, oh, I saw your videos. I want to come work with you. I say, okay, cool. Go read that document and get back with me if you're still interested. And 30 minutes later, they say, I think I'm good. Thanks. Like auto salespeople, they tend to run away from that kind of document because they want more of a, we're like, I guess, like an anti-Grant Cardone culture internally. And so auto salespeople like that. They like the hard charging, high pressure environment that motivates them. We do not have that here. And so we get people who are more into the consultative selling, I guess you could say, and who are coachable and they're more interested in personal development. And it just scares away the I'm the greatest kind of people pretty fast.
And before anybody who's watching or listening to this thinks that, oh, well, Jeremy's company is soft and fluffy, the sales teams are selling things starting at $6,000 and up, and often in 5 figures, and some of them close half the time. So
yeah, when we can put together a good funnel, we can close 20 to 60%. I mean, it really, that's the range we're usually going for there. And it all depends on the funnel, of course, but we've got a great sales team in place and a great sales director, Jeremy DeMerchant. He's amazing. And I've just been so pleased with them. They're such amazing people. And I'm just so impressed with the people that I've been blessed with.
Let me dig into culture for a second. One more question about it, and then we'll move on to another topic. What do you say to the author of the book Rework would say, oh, culture is something that we don't need to look at and it just develops organically and you're wasting your time if you actually write it down and it doesn't exist anyway that way. It's kind of a fabrication.
Yeah, it's absolutely a fabrication. And it's absolutely a waste of time if you don't revisit it regularly. I've concerned myself with that a few different times. I think it's Jason Fried that wrote Rework. I have the book on my Kindle. It's ready to read. I haven't read it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. I agree with that about halfway, I would say. Culture is not an easy thing to do. And I would say most of it, probably where he's coming from on that, is that culture is top down. And if it doesn't matter what I write down, if I'm not living up to that, none of my people expect to need to live up to it. And so it's about the doing. It's not about the writing. But the writing can certainly help with the doing. And it can certainly help attract people who will help you with the doing.
Right.
I like the idea of every new hire should be at a higher level than the last hire. Like they should be higher than the average vibe of the company, every new hire. And so you continually improve and improve and improve. And so if you're going to attract that kind of person, well, having some tools to attract that kind of person is really nice. And that's a big part of what that culture doc is for us, is attracting the right salespeople, attracting the right ops people, attracting the right clients. It just lets people know what we strive to be. Not what we always are, but what we strive to be.
Right.
So 60% in agreement with that.
Okay. Yeah. But you should have it written doan after a while.
I do. I found great benefit from writing it down. Yeah.
I think the clarity of a few core values is really important. Like, look, we stand for these. Plus, what other people have not gotten into is that sort of Constitution, Bill of Rights type thing that you were talking about. Like, look, here is a not even a process, but some principles at least that we're going to stand for. And sometimes we're going to work and do something to the left or the right of these, but let's have this discussion about pulling us back to the center. Right. This would be our North Star or our magnet.
That's a great way to put it. The more you write things down, the more hidebound you can get.
Mm.
And we found that once or twice when we were working together, it's like, oh, this is not a flexible process. There are only 4 of us right now. There should be no inflexibility at this stage of the business. So we had to kind of strip things out and go back to zero a few times. And that was good for us.
Mm-hmm.
We did it before it was a $500,000 mistake, but
Mm-hmm.
it was definitely something that we had to learn. One fellow that I really like in this area that comes to mind with culture and all the stuff surrounding it is Cameron Harold,
Mm.
the COO Alliance and the Second in Command podcast. It's one of my 3 favorite podcasts, and he talks with all these COOs of companies and stuff like that, and it blows my mind the way that these people think differently. And I can't think that way right now. I mean, I don't have the mental skill set to do that kind of thinking. And so it's humbling and it's inspiring and it's just pretty tremendous. But he talks about, well, we love his Meetings Suck book.
Mm-hmm.
Those have helped me scale down on overloading my people with meetings.
Mm.
Not completely fix the problem, but to scale down on it. I did some damage at first, over meeting with my people.
Yeah, I remember now.
And so I had some backlash about that, that we're still kind of recovering from, like finding the right balance.
Mm-hmm.
Because I met with my people so much, they were frustrated with me that they weren't getting enough done. They felt like they were wasting time. They were right about it. I hire good people who know what they're talking about. And so we had to back off from that. But then it was hard to get a meeting with my own people for a little while. Now I think we found about the right balance there, but it was something that we had to put some work into fixing, because I was just controlling and micromanaging and stuff like that. And so
the good news is that has receded into the past in my perception. So much so that when you said it, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that from like April of 2017. You know, it's now July 2018. That's in the past.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Good.
And just recognizing that I think differently from my people, and the manager schedule, maker schedule that we talk about sometimes together, that cool article by Graham. Is it somebody Graham?
Yeah, Paul Graham, I think.
Paul Graham. Yeah. Amazing article.
Share that once a week at least with somebody.
I'm not surprised. It's pretty awesome. But letting my makers be makers instead of expecting them to do context switching on the hour every hour. That's just not effective for some job roles. And I was hurting my people's effectiveness with that. And so just respecting that kind of idea was a big deal. In fact, I might write that into the company culture. We have it written in a little bit in we are a non-emergency culture. We are not running an ambulance service kind of stuff, but it might do me well to articulate that a bit more. But Cameron Harold's, the Meetings Suck, the Double book, and then the Vivid Vision. That's one that I'm just about to get. That's just popped up on my radar again, and I realized, oh, I need to buy that.
Okay. I bought, because of you, Tyler Paris's Chief of Staff book. And I looked over there a minute ago because that's where it is to see, who's the author of that again? So I'm going to read that and find my person to apply that stuff. And also I bought, because it has the same title and came up at the same time on Amazon, a 2-part volume also called Chief of Staff about World War I era generals. And in that kind of range. Not the strategic generals of, okay, we're going to make the Schlieffen plan or something, but more the bean counter types, or who were like, how are we really going to do this?
They're running the logistics. The back end.
On a logistics level. That's right.
That sounds really interesting.
I'm looking forward, in 2020 when I finally get a chance to come up for air and read those things.
Get it done, Jason.
Well, I've got books in between right now.
Good point.
When I want to dig into, ask one question about vision for a minute, because I remember early on, you have a lot of energy and want to do 50 million things, and you tend to, I was imagining you as a star traveling in space, you would blast into the infinite unknown, right? And see Jeremy as a receding point. And hopefully you wouldn't fall over the event horizon and become invisible, right? But sometimes I had to run to catch up, or we would discover like 4 months had gone by and you would change the company vision a bit and not communicated it to me, and I had been dumb enough not to ask, and then finally we would get into this friction situation where I'd be like, well, I don't know what you want, tell me what you want, and then you do this big data dump and go, I'm sorry, I forgot, right? Or I didn't know you needed the update, right? And we got better at that rhythm for a while. You would run ahead
and noticing what the red flags were for when we weren't quite in sync on that stuff. It took us a little while to learn what are we trying to notice here when something is not matched up properly. What are the signs of that? How do I feel when this is happening? And just noticing those feelings, noticing those signs, that can be a little tough. So it took some work to get in sync there, CEO and COO style.
Do we have any indicators that come out that we can share?
Okay. When you're feeling disconnected from your coworkers or from I'm kind of thinking CEO, COO stuff right now because I've been listening to a lot of Cameron Herold lately, and that's what you and I were doing. But what should your relationship look like? Whatever relationship this is. What should it feel like? What should it sound like? What's the day-to-day flow of that relationship? Cameron Herold talks a lot about the difference between every CEO, COO relationship is significantly different. Like the COO role is very hard to quantify because it changes so much company to company. And so there are some folks that are what they call the two in a box, where they're pretty much doing all the brainstorming together, and then it transmits down below that. Or the vision and operations. So vision filters down to operations, and then from everyone else down there, and the CEO is not really in touch with the rest of the company. The COO is the one that actually deals with all the stuff.
Not our relationship.
No, not so. No, we're more of what they call the two in a box, I think. So it's really interesting. You have to figure out what it ought to look like. And I find that writing things down and mind mapping things is very useful for that. And just talk about it. So many of these CEOs and COOs, they talk once a week.
Right.
And I'm stunned by how can they get stuff done only talking once a week. Because some of these folks are still kind of in startup mode. They're in big startup mode. I mean, they're doing $40 million a year as a 18-person startup or as a 23-person startup or whatever. But it's still kind of startup mode or moving barely out of startup mode. And I'm just amazed at how effective they are with being able to. I think
I know why. It's because they're not inundating each other with too many ideas.
Agreed.
It gives them the maker time to go away and go, okay, I got these 3 things to work on. As long as the pacing of what they get done can match, by the time they orbit back like comets to each other, something is done and we can move on to the next idea.
Yeah,
I think
we found one of the tools that was really useful to us, and this was kind of as Jason was starting to explore other business ideas and things like that. He was getting ready to move out, but quarterly planning, that was huge. Our director of ops, I guess you could say, Lynn, she does what's called a deliberate direction document. And she makes me literally sign it. Like, this is what we're going to do this quarter. These are our priorities. I commit to this. And it's been good for harnessing that that energy that shows up on Colby Index as quick start, that kind of energy, or a very high D energy on the DISC personality profile. Just making sure that I'm not changing directions on my people, not giving them, she calls it visionary whiplash. Making sure that we're actually all on the same page.
Right. Left, no right.
Yeah, it just takes a bit of structure. And maybe this, generally speaking, the person doing creating the whiplash for other people is not the person to build that structure. because that's not their specialty.
Mm-hmm.
So the other people ought to build that structure around them and get commitment from the seat.
Right.
Often it's a CEO.
I want founders to hear this because
Hmm.
they're going to need to hear it, especially if you're the type of person who has a million different ideas and wants to do them all. And maybe even it doesn't have yet developed the self-awareness to recognize what they're doing and how it
That's a
affects other
really
people.
common thing. Yes.
That's
It's a
huge.
self-awareness thing. Mm-hmm.
And then maybe you get frustrated. Well, why aren't these people tagging along with me? Why aren't they moving at the pace that I want them to? Why don't they get it? Why
Yeah.
are they annoyed every time I come up with a new, like, you won't even think about it as whiplash or changing direction.
Yeah.
You just go, this is what I want now.
Yeah.
And
Honestly, the way I feel about most of these things is, oh, this is a natural evolution of a current thing. This is just the next step in a current thing. And to everybody else, it feels like a different direction rather than a next step. Yeah, exactly.
Raising my hand. That's exactly how it feels to me. Yeah.
So like figuring out what the size of your steps are and talking about why you want to do this thing, and honestly listening to people. That was so hard for me to learn. Honestly listening and being willing to subsume my opinion. It's a trust thing. It's a trust thing. Trust is not easy for me. I tend to micromanage, and I'm not good at micromanaging, so it's a bad thing all the way around. But trusting my people's opinions to be better than my own, oh my gosh, that's hard sometimes, but it has to happen. 6 heads are better than 1. And I mean, if it's 1 against 3, I bring 3 people into an idea and they all say, no, we don't have the bandwidth for that, or no, that feels wrong for our business, and etc. I need to listen to those people. I mean, if I brought them in because I trust their opinions, if I'm running an idea by them, it's not because I'm trying to get it rubber stamped. It's not because I'm just trying to get them on board. It's because I really value what they have for me and I need to act like it. That was a big
Not
lesson.
always easy, particularly for the
Yeah,
ID
it's very
founders,
easy to
right?
say something. But actions speak louder than words.
Yeah. Wow. Because I could feel some pushback from other leaders going, well, I'm the one in charge and I'm the visionary and they need to do what I say. And
That's
not
true
always
to an
good.
extent, but it's if your people aren't able to buy into what you're doing in the business, why are they there? I mean, why do you have that person on board if they can't get on board with what you're doing? Is that a personnel mismatch or is that a vision mismatch? I mean, if the people that you trust enough to have in your own business in really key roles can't get it, I mean, they're more on your side than anyone else in the world will ever be. No, if they're the friendliest jury you can possibly imagine, and if you can't convince them of it, you're generally not going to convince the other people. I mean, they have to be on board. It's a company. It's not you running alone by yourself. And so that was a big part as I learned to be less self-employed and more of a true founder, I guess you could say. We're a team now, and I have to act like it. I am part of that team.
Yeah. I've really learned to relax about that stuff over the last year and a half of working with you, of just letting it go and saying, okay, this is the end result that I want. How you got, and like, I'm open to input on that. But once we've decided and it's kind of frozen, like this is our goal. How we get there, I don't really care. As long as it doesn't involve awful things, as long as we don't have to boil babies to make
right.
wizard flying oil ethical, or something.
Has to not bankrupt us, has to get a good result. But letting people develop processes. And instead of me going through that was a hard lesson. Being able to show folks the vision enough so that they buy in, and then handing it off to them. Whew, that was a big thing. And I don't claim to be amazing at it right now, but that's something that I pay a lot of attention to now is, okay, if somebody's going to buy into this, they have to be in charge of this. I mean, I have to really, truly let go of that. I have to truly delegate. And I think I've become a much better delegator over the past few months, but it's taken work. It's taken a lot
Yeah.
of work.
Yeah, it is not necessarily easy,
None of
especially
these
if you have been a solopreneur for a long time.
Yeah, listeners, please notice that so much of this stuff is about personal development. This is
Yes.
about my personal journey through all the mistakes I was making in my head and suppressing my people because I didn't realize what I was doing wrong there.
Mm.
A mentor of mine, Scott McFall, back from when I was a clinical hypnotist, he's an excellent hypnosis mentor, but he always said, personal life is business life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's absolutely 100% true. Anything dysfunctional in the personal life that touches the business life, like a dysfunctional mindset, man, it's going to have a magnified effect because now you're dealing with, for me, it's 8 people, but you might be dealing with 2 people or 100 people or something like that. And it all gets magnified. You have to deal with that. I've got 2 coaches right now for myself, and they are absolutely invaluable. It makes a tremendous difference because just knowing when I'm getting off track with my own head, that's so important, and I need to catch it fast because any mistakes I'm making are magnified 8-fold
Right
now.
Right. I have this peculiar point of view about my business. Like, it's part of my body. It's an extension of my body.
Yeah.
And so that explains why if there's a mutation over here or something, it's going to show up over there because it's all connected. So if I get a large multi-acre physical plant, that's part of my body as well. So we have to do it.
I'm just starting to really focus on taking care of my health as well for the same kind of reason.
Yeah.
Health affects attitude, and attitude affects the business. Even simple stuff like the speed at which we can operate. It's a huge effect.
I remember when I first got the brainwave that I should look up some information about how to increase operational tempo, and came up with Evan Carmichael's stuff as a starting point, for example.
That Evan Carmichael stuff is excellent.
6 levels of delegation in that. Good stuff, and putting that into to action. Well, let's cover one more topic and then we'll wrap up. And that, to me, I mean, this has been great. And I've enjoyed being really relaxed about talking with you about all this stuff. Sharing for founders what some of the challenges are in scaling. Each of these conversations that I've had has been a little bit different. And here we've been focusing a lot on the mindset and what the founder can and shouldn't be doing, and how they should and shouldn't be thinking, maybe. To be effective, at least the truth as we see it, right? And the way we're filtering internal communications. I've written about this, and I believe that internal communications, if not properly managed, can sink the business, because as soon as you get Slack going, somebody was on a SaaS podcast and being interviewed, and they're doing well with their SaaS business. And what's your favorite business tool? And they said Slack. And I didn't cringe, but I was like, nothing against Slack. Again, it is a great tool. But I went, really? That's what you pick? It's not my pick. Because once you get 4 people into a Slack channel, and you're one of them, 2 of those people at least are going to start having a conversation that is completely irrelevant to you. And it's going to go on for an hour. And they're going to be real excited, and it's going to be great for the company culture because they're sharing views and interacting and whatnot. But if you watch all that as the founder, your time and energy are going to be just wasted.
That always on communication can suck down every bit of time a company has. And I say that with no qualifications. It absolutely can suck down every bit of time a company has. Learning to manage your communications and have effective communications in the first place is so absolutely vital. I'm going through and collecting articles. I'll see if I can find it for you later. As I mentioned all my different task lists that I'm collecting.
Let's cover that. Yeah.
Okay.
After this,
Okay.
dig into that.
But they, I don't remember where it was, but there are two kinds of leaders
Hmm.
that they had found. Maybe this was a podcast. The leaders who they do one-on-one meetings, the CEOs who do one-on-one meetings, and the CEOs who do big meetings, like, and the ratios,
Mm-hmm.
everybody meeting together. And they found that the CEOs who do big meetings and way less one-on-one are significantly more effective. It's way outside the statistical margin of error.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Interesting.
and they couldn't quite figure out, I think this was a podcast, so I doubt I'm going to find it as a matter of fact, but they found that while this was true, they couldn't quite figure out why. Are the companies that can handle that kind of management style in a place where they're already healthier? Or can you bring a CEO that manages that way into any company and it will make the company healthier?
Mm-hmm.
So there's always a data collection issue with that, with real life non-lab experiments. So they couldn't really quite get to the bottom of that, but it was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
When you're the founder, you have the opportunity both to change that management style and to work to have the company be one where that management style works properly. So that's something I'm starting to explore, and I have no idea what I'm doing with it yet, but I feel like I'm much more one of the one-on-one CEOs,
Yeah.
the big
I like
meeting CEOs.
what you
So that
just
was so
shared
great.
there.
What's that?
Is what you just shared there is really surprising to me, because I've been
It
reading
was
a
to me
lot
too.
about, hey, you should have the one-on-one meetings, right?
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know
Yeah.
what that means yet.
Yeah.
This is something that these people found, and I think it was in a, it'll come to me later, but it was in, they were actually doing studies. Lisa, I think there was a professor that was doing studies on these CEOs, and I believe it was an NPR podcast, like CEO Talk or something. No. It was they had Jack Welch on this podcast. Okay, I know I can find the podcast now. I'll go find that
Very
later.
cool. Interesting.
But,
No, but the chicken or the egg question there is interesting.
Right. There's some study, there's some digging to do on that before I could really take action on that comfortably. But that's one thing. But managing internal communication. So learning, everybody in the SaaS world, for instance, they tend to use a tool like Slack. There's a lot of remote positions, and you have to be able to have, email gets messy so fast that you kind of need some sort of chat-ish function. So a lot of people tend to use Slack. We use one called Teamwork Chat now. We switched into Teamwork Chat from Slack because the structure, now Slack integrates with Asana in some really good ways that we might never have switched if that had happened before we switched.
Literally a couple months.
Yeah, like 2 months
probably.
after we switched. Yeah. But we're very happy with Teamwork and Teamwork projects and Teamwork Chat now for our internal communications. But yeah, I have to just ignore certain channels because when I need to go head down and write, that's a very difficult task for me. Ask anybody in my company.
Just
when
in
does
general.
Jeremy become a bottleneck? When he has writing to do. That's just, I build that up. It's such a big thing for me. And that's one place where I'm a bit dysfunctional still. I am not good at business writing or getting business writing done, I should say. And so I have to shepherd my time very carefully when I'm in that type of workflow, more in that maker schedule rather than the manager schedule. I have to switch back and forth between those two, and I can't pay attention to every message coming in. There are, I don't know, 6 different ways people can get in touch with me. I don't really get phone calls. People don't do that to me very much, but I get texts, I get Facebook messages. The Facebook page gets messages of people wanting to hire on with us. We've got the Teamwork Chat. We've got the client liaison type stuff where a client will get in touch with me through one of these messages. People email. I mean, there are a few different ways that I have to check in with occasionally, but if if I stayed on top of those all the time, I wouldn't get a whole lot done. So sometimes I just have to go twice a day, and that's fine. Some of that is systemizing things enough so that your people don't need you. If you've got good people and good processes, then they shouldn't need you on an emergency basis all the time. And you shouldn't need them on an emergency basis all the time. I've found that's more important. My people, I need to be more careful about
interrupting,
giving them space than they do about giving me space. I tend to have more of that.
Right. Oh, I sure would like
manager.
Lynn's input on this. Maybe I need to like set that aside into a list of things to discuss with Lynn at a meeting.
Yeah, have it in a
future,
task
not
list rather than
interrupt
ask
now.
about it in chat. Stuff like that.
And that may sound basic to people, but how companies are often run
it's a big deal.
is interruptive.
Almost every business that I've talked with, or business owner, or I don't know, team member that I've talked with that uses Slack, they go, "Oh yes, we love Slack, and it's horrible."
Right.
And it's all about how you use it. So you have to mute channels so that you only get notified if someone calls your name in that channel. You have to learn how to manage these in your business and learn that ignoring stuff is okay. You have to create the okayness of ignoring things for a certain period of time. And then you have to abide by that process you've built emotionally, and then you'll be fine. But that's one thing about communication, not over meeting with people. I like face-to-face communication because I think out loud, I think collaboratively, and it's a very different way of thinking for me when I get with someone. Like this kind of talk is very easy for me because we're kind of thinking out loud and following rabbit trails and stuff, but it takes a long time to do.
Yeah.
And so I've had to cut back on my meeting with people because it interrupts them. I've had to get a couple of my people, really one of my people, not to have long involved conversations with me in chat because it's very efficient as far as the time spent on each message to get it done, and it's already written down so you know exactly what to do. But if we're deciding something or discussing how something ought to happen, I can't afford to spend 45 minutes on a chat conversation going back to it 19 times.
Right.
That takes way more mental energy for me. So a lot of it's about being respectfully of each other's communication styles.
Right. And you have to hop on to a 5-minute Skype chat or Zoom chat.
When will a 5-minute Skype chat or Zoom chat or whatever be more efficient than chatting this out and learning what the signs are of, oh, this is about to be an hour and a half long chat that's going to steal my focus from something else. Let's hop on for 5 minutes and hash it out and be done.
Right. And having watched that, for founders who are listening or watching now, the thing to look for is, are you getting into not arguments, but kind of really intensive, time-consuming discussions that are sort of didactic or granular about should it be the blue or the yellow pixel or something, like or the how do we organize our files? Yeah, exactly, was what I was going to bring up, which is not an easy decision to make, by the way. We used Asana for about 6 months, for example, as our big repository, and then went, we don't like the way that our workflow is going. We could have a podcast about this, and wiped it out entirely and went back and redesigned the whole process. So you can get a tool, but have to learn how to use the tool. And I think that's something that founders miss.
Speaking of tools, they affect your communication greatly. And this is a very Noam Chomsky way of thinking, like you speak in a certain language and you can't think certain thoughts. That's like Chinese thinkers think very differently than English thinkers do. And a lot of the culture is bound up in the language itself. These tools are some of the language that we use in the company. So, I mean, they affect the way that we communicate in a very fundamental and insidiously subtle way. And you have
That's
to
a great phrase.
that, or else the tool will control you rather than you controlling the tool. One of the things that I've found with, I was having the problem getting very frustrated with, I would say, okay, this thing needs doing. And then it would go off into the ether and it would be on someone's task list. So we knew that much. It would be on someone's task list. And then now what happens? Do I magically remember to follow up on that in 6 days? There's no way. There's no way I'm going to remember to follow up on that stuff.
Right. Brain is full now with other things.
Right. I don't have the bandwidth to follow up on everything that I say to do. So one of the things that I've put in place is anytime a task is created, it must be created with a due date. That is the feedback. That is the thing that closes that feedback loop so it's complete. There's a way to get that thing reported on. And so then we can go back and in our operations stand-up meetings, we can go back and say, okay, we're behind on X, Y, and Z. We're ahead on A, B, and C, and we're right on track with these. But due dates, something as simple as that, just not putting a due date on a task, that was a really big deal, and it caused us to have to over-communicate and check in on things, and it caused things to fall through the cracks, even though we had it written down on a task list.
Right.
There's just a lot of moving pieces. Our onboarding project for new clients is 6 pages long, and that's not paragraphs of text. That is task, 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 task. And so there's just so much to do becoming somebody's sales department that when you and I started with this kind of thing, we'd be like, okay, we've got the check to start. Let's start. And you and I would start, and that was it.
Yeah.
And it's just, we have learned so much building this business, and I'm so grateful for it. But those feedback loops right there, that's a big deal. Just learning to use your tools properly and how that tool modifies your workflows. And it's like you hear any accountant talk about accounting. Accounting is easy. Bookkeeping is easy. It's putting them into the tools properly and learning to get what you want out of that tool. That's really where most of the complications come in. Learning to use QuickBooks properly for your business, learning to use Xero, learning to use Wave Apps, learning to use all these tools. They all work differently, and it's a significant change. There's a significant cost to switching tools because of the way you use them, and you have to respect that kind of that cost of learning to use the tool.
Right.
But
it's not just, hey, I heard the features over here are better for the price. I better switch over.
Does this feature work well, and does it work well for our business? I have a lot of people ask frequently, what's the best CRM? And I say, no.
I roll my eyes so hard on that.
I put out a video on the 4 or 5 questions you need to ask yourself to figure out the best CRM for you. But there really is no best CRM. It's all about what you need in your business and how it operates in your business. But it affects your communication really powerfully. I find that our communication changes significantly on a project if I enable the messages feature on a teamwork project. I do not typically enable the messages feature on that project anymore. We create a teamwork chat channel instead of a messages feature. So we use the files, we use the links, we use the tasks, we use the timelines, the milestones, all that stuff, but we don't use messages. We use chat instead. And we just have to, you have to know how you work.
Where are people actually going to look as opposed to where does the system think they should look? Right.
How many clicks does it take to get something is a big focus of mine with reports, with checking up on tasks, with catching up on this or that. I want to be able to see it with as few clicks as possible. That just seems like a good user design thing to me, or a good user interface.
I used to use that as a sales point for CRMs and accounting software.
Really?
Minimizing the number of clicks and screens you had to go through to enter or view data. Because when you're doing that with lots of people all the time, over and over every day, the costs of that and the savings and the efficiency that add up, multiplying that out over time is tremendous.
And the friction and compliance issues with that. If there's too much friction, your compliance will go down with your existing processes.
Right.
And you'll find yourself not doing the process that you've decided is the best way, or I do. And you'll find your people are not following the process. They just make their own. It's like the the du jour path and the desire paths.
Mm-hmm.
Like you build a sidewalk with corners on it, and then people cut across the yard and wear the dirt path in the yard because it's easier.
And you see the where
Yeah.
I mean, I've been seeing this for 20 years with salespeople not wanting to use company CRMs.
Oh yeah.
And ending up with their own Excel spreadsheets. That is the thing that they will 99%
Terrifying.
of the time use. And then the company executives are like, "Where's the data?"
You lose
out on
access
people's
to
hard
your own
drives
company.
individually.
Yep.
So then they get frustrated. And I've seen this in political campaigns too.
Yeah.
Where they want the party wants the data in their CRM, and people are reluctant to, and so there needs to be a little bit of selling going on to sell the idea of use this.
Yeah.
Okay, before we wrap up,
Mm-hmm.
we were talking before we got on the podcast, and you mentioned that you had information or to-do lists, or hey, I should check up on that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Locked in, like spread out all over creation. Tell us about that and what founders can do who are maybe feeling kind of scattered about all the things they're using and where their follow-up lists are and that.
Yeah, it's time for me to do another big collection and get back to Getting Things Done by David Allen.
Mm-hmm.
There are two books that have changed my life in significant way. Well, there are a lot, but these two for task management and doing work. Along with that Paul Graham article, The Maker Schedule, Manager Schedule, Cal Newport's book, Deep Work, has been an absolute life changer.
Yeah.
When I read that book, I realized, and I often say that the overlap, the Venn diagram for ADHD and entrepreneurialism is very nearly a circle. There's so much overlap there. The entrepreneurial spirit often is very ADHD if you put it in a different context. And so learning to manage yourself is so important. And I realized recently that I was jotting things down in about, this is embarrassing, but literally 12 different places. And I was unable to trust my own brain. I was unable to trust this task list because it might be in 11 different places. And that was, it was shocking to me because I use Evernote I use it a lot. I had some saved tabs in, like bookmarked tabs in my Chrome browser, in my Firefox browser, in my tablet browser. I had screenshots on my ideas I wanted to play with or implement on my tablet from the browser. I had the Asana list for my personal stuff. I've got the teamwork projects. Then our PR firm they've got their own project management software called Pro Workflow. And it's just crazy, the list proliferation that I had. And I can't hold myself up as a paragon of this by any means. I'm someone who's bad at this stuff. But if you're someone that struggles with it the way that I do, then this might help. The deep work, being able to go head down for long periods at a time, when I find that I can't go head down for some reason, there's something wrong. When I can't spend 3 hours on something, there's something wrong. And it's because I'm not trusting my processes and or my people. Having more than one task list is one of the easiest ways to stop trusting yourself, to stop trusting your memory, etc.
Right.
So
that
getting
feels
all that
anxiety inducing to me.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it takes up bandwidth trying to remember where you put something. That's a huge bandwidth stealer for me. And so I have to manage it very carefully. So it's time for me to do a giant spring cleaning, so to speak, and get back to the getting things done method. Collect everything, and I'm doing this right now. Collect everything into one task list. And then you can go through and you can do what the getting things done people call cranking widgets. Do it, defer it, delete it, or it might be just those three. It seems like there's one other thing you can do. Do it, delete it, defer it, delegate it. That's what the other thing is. So you just crank through huge task lists by batching them. But if you've got it all in one place, then you know you can batch properly. So
Right.
I highly
or
recommend.
triage it at least.
Yeah, that triage is kind of the delegation.
Or
That's
delete.
what we've called it in our company, is triage. Do it,
Mhm.
delete it, defer it, delegate it. That's
Right.
kind of what's going on there. And so just being able to trust your task list is a huge deal, and getting things done and deep work, that combo of
Mhm.
thinking there is a very effective combo. And whenever I start to get anxious or overwhelmed or confused, that is now the first place that I look, is, do I have one task list? It's such a
Right.
stupidly mechanical thing, but so many of these things are. When we feel overwhelmed, we start thinking there's this mystical thing, or we start feeling like imposter syndrome, or we're not good enough or something. Usually it's stuff that's this mechanical and this tactical. It's just, oh, you have too many task lists. How stupid is that? How simple is that? But it really does get back to the fundamentals almost every time. Some of the fundamentals most of them are not mystical. Oh, I either have the je ne sais quoi, the it factor, the X factor, or I don't. It's just, oh, I'm not doing this mechanical process. And it becomes very simple once you realize that and go, oh, well, let's fix that thing and I will feel better. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, you and I are very hard on ourselves. We sort of self-flagellate
Sure.
a lot. And, the purpose of this podcast is to share the challenges and struggles and tribulations of scaling businesses, so that founders, especially newer founders, can recognize what's going on. And so I love the stories that you've been able to share, what we've been able to dig into.
Thank you.
How can people find out more about the Closing Engine?
There are a couple of ways. One is I'll just direct them to theclosingengine.com.
Sure.
That's the easy way. We've got a couple of different things in the works right now. We've got the Done For You sales program. That's our guaranteed clients program. And we work with, I guess you could say, digital service providers, high dollar digital service providers, and some trainers and coaches. We're kind of moving out of that world, but we love the Done For You clients. So if you do something for other people and you need a sales force to handle that for you, all the way to lead generation, then we can handle that kind of stuff. Theclosingengine.com.
Right. And this is not, for those businesses owners out there listening, this is not just we hired a commissioned salesperson, sat them in a corner like a cactus, threw leads at them once in a while, and hopefully they did a good job.
That doesn't work.
What you are doing is at a level far beyond that, with systems, oversight, coaching, because salespeople can get off track, good hiring practices, all these things that we've learned through getting kicked in the nuts over time to do better. And so the level that you're handling the problem at is far higher than just, hey, I went on into a Facebook group and found a hired gun.
We believe so. Do you mind if I mention our licensing agreement?
No, go ahead.
Part of the buyout for Jason, when Jason said, I want to go do consulting, I want to go do the Cold Star thing, and I bought him out of the business, part of that agreement was the licensing of our processes. It was such a shock to us to figure out, oh, this isn't just hiring salespeople. This is creating a sales department. So it's figuring out the lead generation. We have lead generation partners that we cover the cost of in this, because that's so vital to have everybody on the same page. We've got a amazing copywriter on staff here to write copy for our clients in simple funnels, because it's so vital to setting up the sales team for success. When we're talking about 40, 50, 60% close rates, we are not talking about cold calling. We are talking about a marketing funnel that is on point, and salespeople that are on point with their product knowledge and their training and everything. But we bring the tech, the copy, the back end team, the back office team, the sales manager, the call recording software, the scheduling software. I mean, we plug everything in properly and just make sure that people are ready to go. Mostly for business to business stuff. That's really our sweet spot for most of these. But we do some personal development stuff too, as well, in the training area, and that's a lot of fun. But yeah, these processes are so different than we've grown so much with those.
And I know because I've been on these prospective customer, I guess, or
Yeah.
prospective client sales calls where we've been talking over the last year and a half. We've been talking to people who are interested in hiring us, and over and over again, I've heard them say with my own ears, "Wow, you guys are way more professional. Wow, you guys are way
Oh yeah,
different
that's right.
than everyone else that I've talked to."
Yeah.
So,
And it was, I remember they specifically said it was because of the questions we ask. They
right.
knew that this was the things that we're asking. It showed the expertise, and it's just, well, that stuff only comes through experience.
Right.
But ask better questions, and you'll get better clients.
All right. Our guest today on the Cold Star Project has been Jeremy Pope, founder of The Closing Engine, the done-for-you third-party sales department. You should go talk to him. And if you want him as a guest on your podcast, Little Birdie told me he is available for that.
That's true.
All
Yep.
right. Thanks for joining us, Jeremy.
Thank you.